All right. Shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. All right. Double honors to our beloved apostles, bishops, and elders, a great millstone that we will. And peace and salutations to the beloved elect of the nation of Israel, whom Yahweh Bahashem Yahshai has risen in these last days through the preaching of the word, also known as the breath of life. Shalom to you, Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, Bashem Rakakadash Barakatham. All right, I'm coming back again through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahshai with another quick lesson impromptu as concerning the Passover we have coming up April 1st, sundown. And hey brothers, as and I'm pretty sure I can speak for other brothers, you brothers out there through the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, and as the scripture says, how we are earnestly seeking that new heaven and new earth that dwelleth righteousness. And as we say every year, Lord willing, this is the last one, And same thing goes for this year, brothers. And, the beautiful thing is the end is speaking so loud right now. All right. Like Babylon the Great, okay, / Esau's rulership is like they have a saying called the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's pretty much where we're at, brothers. Okay, witnessing the fall of Esau, Edom, through the prophecies, man. All right, we can see, and ultimately through the spirit, see the angels holding back those four winds that you read about in Revelation, the 7th chapter, which represents the destruction until the servants are fully sealed. And we understand that in order for the servants to be fully sealed, we have to be introduced to the MOTB, and which is also known as the hour of temptation, okay, which is going to ultimately prove your allegiance. And that mark, which is the mark of the beast, and that mark has to be implemented before the missiles hit Babylon the Great. And through the spirit, I had written down a few notes, as we see this place, Babylon the Great, crumbling. It is very important to trust in the detachment mindset and cleave unto Yahweh Bashim Yahshai even more and more. And as the scriptures tells us too, to set our houses in order, man, you know what I mean? And, because, Lord's will, brothers, this one is it, man. And it's going to take, in the times that we're coming into, all the work that we put in through the years, okay, the things that we've been preaching and prophesying about, especially when we go into second Ezra, I believe it's the 14th chapter, 14 and 14 and 13 on down, which I'm going to read here shortly. We're going to have to make sure that we're applying these things, and the scriptures constantly exhort us to not be entangled with the ways of this world. Now we are in the world, but we're not of it. You know what I mean? So we have to make sure that we're not entangling ourselves to where we're not focusing on things in the spirit, because literally, man, we're literally on any day now. Any day now. What's the word? Shit can pop off any day now. Okay. And I'm speaking about the chaos. Okay, cities being troubled. A major event that's gonna usher in this MOTB, and when that MOTB is ushered in, eventually we're gonna ultimately have to detach from this place, and So, this just was been on my spirit, you know what I mean? Because it's coming. And call Allah Yahweh Bashim Yashai. Because in order for the kingdom to be set up, this must come to pass. Okay, and if your heart is right with Yahweh Bashim Yashai, you should want this to come to pass, because we can't be at rest, brothers. Apostle Gabar, he had, watching his live show today, he had said something, pretty much how the destruction of this place is going to ultimately fix everything. Everything you brothers worry about, sigh and cry about, worry about, what's going to fix it is this destruction. Okay, that's the antidote to all this fucking bullshit. It's necessary. And, once again, that's why, I speak for myself first and foremost. We have to make sure that we're not entangled or overcharged with the things of this world, because everything that we see is going to fade away. We got to be in that pilgrim mindset, and and you just be ready to let this place go, and ultimately, show you how by Shimi Ashai where your allegiance is at, brothers. And it's going to be a bitter what's the word? A bitter walk. But one thing for sure and two things for certain: those who take that mark, your ass is cooked. And we're going to see these individuals. We're going to be able to see those who made a pact with this devil. And we're going to see and understand how completely fucking cooked and through they are. And, by us rejecting that mark, yeah, it's going to be some struggle with it, but we're going to know one thing for sure, two things for certain, that we still got a chance. Okay, so, and as far as, concerning, the Pesach, the scripture speaks about, getting the leaven up out of your houses. Well, that's just not physical leaven, but the spiritual leaven. We want to make sure that we're using this time to examine ourselves and set our hearts right with Yahweh Bashim Yashai, and a good time to examine ourselves, because we want to make it out on the first round. We don't want to have to be destroyed and come back, which, all Israel's going to be saved, but we don't want to taste no part in this second death that Yahweh Bashim Yashai is going to bring, man. You know what I mean? So, and I say that to myself with the urgency, because we see the end is fucking screaming, brothers. So I want to read the scripture, man. 2 Ezra, the 14th chapter and 13. And I remember when I first heard this precept, when I first came into the truth. One of the brothers from the main camp, he had they were doing the GMS to the points, and this was about, I'll probably say about maybe 13 years ago. But it definitely stuck out. It was definitely an exhortating scripture, and but this mindset has to be applied even more now, as we see the day approaching, man. All right, this is the book of 2 Ezra 14 verse 13. It says, "Now therefore set thy house in order, and reprove thy people. Comfort such of them as be in trouble, and now renounce corruption." And this is ultimately the mindset that we have to make sure that we're in, setting our houses in order. I mean, what our spiritual house, which when you go to that word house in the Greek, I believe it's abode, which is the vessel where our spirit dwells. Okay, we set it in order, sitting down, examining ourselves, understanding what time that we're living in, understanding what's going to be required, understanding that, there are going to be more sacrifices that's going to have to be made to prove our allegiance with Yahweh by Shemi Ashai. Okay, accepting the bitter. Okay, and being locked the fuck in, bro. Excuse my language, but that's, we're living in a life and death scenario. walking a tightrope. We want to make sure our next move is our spiritual best move. Okay. And that we're making the correct decisions in the spirit versus the flesh. Our crowns are definitely on the line, man. And as I said, we want to make it out of here on the first round. Okay, we don't want to go out the bitter way, And that's another thing too. It's important to be locked in, in prophecy, because that's ultimately what's keeping us afloat. Having that sure word of prophecy, and that's what's keeping us, ultimately afloat. To where, because man, you look around, man. We through here, Jake. Man, we need the kingdom, and it's coming, and we can't take our eye off prophecy because we're commanded to be up on our watch, so that this day doesn't overtake us. And we got to get up and go to work and take care of the shit of the world, but we want to make sure that we're seeking the kingdom first. And I remind myself this every day, but it's, these words are important, especially in the times, that we're living in. Okay. Because, we don't want to be caught as a thief in the night, not in the spirit. We have to really be ready for whatever, man, whether it's being thrown into a prison or even unto becoming a martyr. These are some things that we have to, and being a martyr for Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, I'm going to say that, okay? Being thrown in prison for Yahweh Bashim Yahshai. Okay, I don't want to just say being a martyr, because you got to know what you're being a martyr for. We're not being a martyr for dying for some set or some gang or for a city. Okay. So this, so that all goes into, setting our houses in order, examine ourselves, to seeing if we're really into faith or not. Part of that is understanding what's going to be required from us in these times, man. Getting ready to be blamed, getting ready to be evil spoken of. Okay. All right. The scripture speaks about that. Yahweh spoke about being founded upon a rock, so that when the winds came and beat upon that house, okay, which is parabolistic for, the different oppositions and the things you got to go through, serving the Lord. But you got to remain strong. You got to remain faithful, and that's where we want to be. Okay, unto the end. All right. It says, set thy house in order and reprove thy people. Comfort such of them as be in trouble, and now renounce corruption. And that's pretty much self-explanatory. Okay. Let go from the mortal thoughts and cast away the burdens of man. Put off now that weak nature. And once again, this is an exhortation to us even more now. I know brothers is dealing with all kind of shit, but what we have on the bright side, brothers, prophecy, which is going to lead to what? The kingdom, the rest, which is ultimately what we're working for, what we're laboring for, to enter into the rest. Okay. Okay, so it's only one way out. Okay. And we want to make it out by going up. But in order for you to go up, you got to be a servant of Yahweh Bashim Yahshai. Okay, we're not trying to be destroyed here and then come back. Because, man, what the Lord's getting ready to bring to these 2/3, man, is going to be vicious, man. Okay. So let go from the mortal thoughts, right? And I'm even me, dealing with, in my mind, I'm just making sure that, not letting particular things get to you where it's throwing you off your walk, man. Because we getting ready to get the hell up out of here, man. Things are getting ready to change. The atmosphere is getting ready to change prophetically. Okay. And once again, we want to be able to make sure that we're ready for that. It says, let go from me mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of man, put off now that weak nature. Self-explanatory. Weak nature. I know sometimes, and when you sort of get rough, man, but we gotta man up, Jacob. You gotta man up, man. Get up, man up. We all catching some form of hell. But we know what we're catching it for. We getting ready to win if we continue to fight, man. So put off now that weak nature, and set aside thoughts that are most heavy unto thee. And we all have those thoughts. You might be worried about your family, your shorty, your woman, your finance, whatever. A lot of shit that we, brothers got a lot of worrying on their minds. It's part of the walk, man. But we got to set that aside, because once again, whatever you worrying about that's really irritating and bothering you, just know that it's a fashion of this world. But that shit's getting ready to fade away, because one day, brothers, we're going to get up and ain't none of this shit going to fucking matter. All that's going to be matter is you being in the spirit. Okay? And haste to flee from these times. And that's ultimately the mindset that we got to be in, man. Hastening to flee from these times. Getting our mind ready to get the hell up out of here. Because as we see these prophecies coming to pass, man, Esau's losing it, man. Babylon is losing it, man. The nations hate the whore. There's Babylon is ripe for the taking, and these nations see it, man. Okay, we already, whether it's a controlled opposition or what, the cities are definitely getting ready to be troubled. They're calling for merchandise shortages, food shortages, because of the Straits of Hormuz being blocked off from America and Israel, which is going to cause a lot of hyperinflation, and it's going to cause a lot of prices to skyrocket. It's going to be hard out here, man. So people are going to be under a very stressful environment, because we're in a time of the Lord judging this place. Okay, like I said, we're in a time of the whore being hated. Okay, America's getting threats of particular parts of the grid getting hit. So Babylon's done. And like I said, it's only one way out, like the scripture says, man, and that's up. All right. It says, for yet greater evils than those which thou hast seen happen shall be done hereafter. And we're in a time of evil, man, like the scripture says. And it's all being orchestrated by Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, man. So, and once again, concerning the Passover coming up, all right, which Yahweh Shai is now our Passover, our mindset, once again, it's a tense time. It's a solemn assembly. It's not a fucking party. It's definitely a good time to self-reflect and, to lock in and make sure that the spiritual leaven is at your house. Part of that is understanding what you're involved in, understanding what's going to be required, and hoping that we're part of the elect, and to give diligence to make our calling and election sure, man. And hope that Yahweh Shai is with us, man. It's not a party time, especially now. It's not a party. It's not a rap battle. It's not. We're in a time where we're going to need the Lord, man. And we want to make sure that our works are worthy for that, man. Cause shit is about to go down. Shit is about to hit the fan, man. And once Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, that another thing, man, that famine of the word, man. We're in a time too where the Lord's going to end up removing the prophets. So if you have not been utilizing this time to learn about Yahweh Bashim Yahshai and take heed of his word and gather the oil like the scripture tells you to, you're in for a very, very vicious rude awakening, man. You know what I'm saying? So with that, I want to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Kakadash. Double honors to our apostles and bishops and elders, a great millstone, and peace and shalom to the elect. Shalom, 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 Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, Barakatam.